Yeah. Okay. So the story now gets kind of ugly. I recognize I've got all the pieces of the puzzle necessary to tell the story correctly. I have taken on a co-author. We've found the literature necessary to do it in proper scientific form.
This came from you, but I want to mention your co-author's name.
Yeah, Debbie Cizik.
Okay.
And Debbie was an excellent co-author, strong contributor to the paper. Anyway, we put together over the course of a year, I took a break from effectively my real dissertation work and wrote a paper. Dick thought it was a fantastic paper. He was blown away by it.
I remember the revisions, and I remember this was like, I mean, if I think about what's on the line, like this combines one of these freak situations where you're using evolutionary theory to predict something. And in this case, it's at the level of molecular biology. So with Darwin's orchid, it's a tongue, and with Dick's thing, it's behavior in naked mole rats. This thing is actually at a molecular level.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be more important if mice are going to be the major system in which we are going to test drugs, which are highly sensitive to what? Histological repair.
Yep. It's so profound on several different levels that I'm super energized about getting this into the world. It's transformative. Dick looks at the paper. He says, this is fantastic. He puts me through the ringer to get it really tight. We get it tight. We send it to George Williams, maybe the
number one guy in the world.
The number one senescence guy at the evolutionary level in the world. Right. And he writes a beautiful recommendation letter for this piece. We're going to send it to Nature. George Williams tells Nature, you need to take this piece very seriously. We send it to Nature, and they send it back with one of their absurd form letters that says that the nature of the article is such that it's probably not
limited
of interest to their readers. And we had a good laugh about that. It's cancer, it's senescence.
Dude, it's so bad. Like, this is a response that indicates either malfeasance or an ELISA program, or the janitor ended up responding who didn't know any biology. Something.
It's the craziest thing. And, the cherry on top is that they're turning down George Williams' recommendation. Like, how crazy? Do they know who he is? Like, on what planet? On what planet do you turn down his recommendation to look at something about senescence? So anyway, I get back this rejection, and I have purposefully not shown Carol Greider the paper in preparation, which I am afraid she might have read some way. The reason I didn't show it to her was because I wanted to preserve her independence as a reviewer for the paper. I was hoping, because I still thought she was an ally of mine, I was hoping that Nature would send it to her to review and that she would look favorably on it, especially since it was, very clear that she had done.
It was her lab that made the confirmation.
Yeah. And another thing I forgot. I asked her at some point, something that now rings in my ears. I asked her, Carol, you've now got this result about, actually lab mice have long telomeres, but wild mice have short telomeres. That's a big result.
It's a hell of a delta.
Where are you going to publish it so that I can cite it in my paper, which is the natural thing to do? And she says, we're not going to publish it. We're going to keep the information in-house. That was her phrase. I was too young to understand what the hell she was talking about.
I'll be honest, I'm 54 and I don't quite understand it myself.
Well, it's so heartbreaking. What she has effectively done is decided I could publish this result.
And then everyone would have it.
Huge. But then I'm on a level playing field with everybody else. If I don't publish this result,
I have a stream of papers I can get at.
Then I can start predicting other results. Nobody will know how I am doing that thing. I will look like a super genius. And so holding it in-house is a mechanism for a whole slew of papers.
To be 100, you can afford to bend over backwards and not make inferences. Let's say the following. Holding it in-house is a seemingly inexplicable decision in science, but for the fact that it fits at least one story of this kind, which is that it is consistent with wishing to publish a stream rather than the source of the information that would allow you. So you can either do one discovery or you can do a stream of predictions. And that makes a certain amount of sense given the ruthlessly competitive grant winning environment. And we don't know exactly what happened, but there is no world that I know of in which you're allowed to hold back that kind of information because in part of what's on the line.
Right. So,
I mean, this is not just a question of academic interest.
No,
because these mice are used for medical testing purposes.
Not even that. It's medical testing, but it's also all of the science relative at least to cancer, senescence, wound healing, all of the science that is stacked on these mice that is contingent on their function relative to their telomeres is all compromised.
Right.
You're letting year after year of this stuff accumulate. It's malpractice at an incredible level. So I don't know that she has turned on me, but I call her up and I say, Carol, we are stunned to find that our paper was turned away without review from Nature.
Without review.
Without review. We need your help. Can I send you the paper and have you look at it? And she says yes. And I send her the paper. And she sends back the paper with an unbelievable number of intense criticisms that are not sensible. She pans the paper, does not believe a word.
Do we still have the copy?
I have that paper. I have that paper with her handwriting. I believe I also have the FedEx envelope in which she sent it to me. But she hates the paper. And I have now forgotten a bit of the sequence. But as I am attempting to fix this up for another journal. Oh, here's, sorry, I hate to tangle this story, but it's important to get it right.
You haven't told this in enough.
I haven't told it in a very long time. After the rejection from Nature, after Carol has seen the paper and said it's cruddy, I get a letter I don't expect from a journal I know it exists, but I'm not super familiar with it. Experimental Gerontology. Experimental Gerontology says, we are the editors of Experimental Gerontology. We have heard a rumor of your work. We're very interested. Would you be willing to submit a version to our journal? And, this is happening prior to Carol looking at my paper and panning.
Okay. So the only way they would have known about this would have been from Nature or from Dick, or we don't even know.
I'm pretty sure I know based on what I was too young to sort out really what they were saying, but they indicate that they're fans of antagonistic pleiotropy, right?
Who isn't?
So what happened was George Williams, having heard that it got rejected, contacted some friends of his and was like, you should really take a look at this. So I begin the process of revising it. I've shown it to Carol. She's panned it. I send the revised version to Experimental Gerontology. They send it out for review. As you know, review is blind. You don't know who your reviewers are, but you can often tell who they are. It's not as obscure depending.
If it's a small field.
Yeah. So they read the acknowledgments of my paper, which are now on alert about Carol. I have to thank her in the paper for the work she did, but I'm now on alert that she's gone strange on the subject matter of this paper. And so I've broken her out separately in the acknowledgments. I don't want to be as gracious to her because she's being hostile to me, but I don't want to not acknowledge her. So I acknowledge her separately. Experimental Gerontology, then I am 99% sure, sends the paper to her as the reviewer. She pans it. Absolutely brutal critiques, just pages and pages and pages of them. They are not high quality critiques. I could go through every single one
Don't
of them.
bother. This is a podcast. Just
No, I can't do it here, but I could have then.
No, okay.
But I didn't know what to do because she was in line for a Nobel Prize. That was well understood. I didn't want to accuse a leading light of the field of
Okay, this is exactly why I got angry at you at the beginning of the podcast, you moron. No offense. You were in line for a Nobel Prize. You didn't, I mean, I'm sorry. There is an aspect of this about giving away your power before you've even accumulated. You don't even have a PhD at this
I'm
point.
just saying, at the time, if you mentioned her name, people would say, oh yeah, her Nobel Prize is one of these years, right? So my point was, I was in the awkward position. I didn't understand what I was supposed to do. I didn't want to send back a review that said, I don't know who the person is who reviewed this, but they don't understand the material and all of their critiques suck. Because I didn't want to accuse somebody who was that powerful of not getting it.
I mean, here's the problem. What do? You don't actually have evidence in the hard form where like you have got videotape. But on the other hand, these are small worlds. All of this is preposterous.
Right. So I sit on the review for too long, not knowing what.
Well, you don't know how to play the game.
I don't know how to handle it.
I'm sorry, but like I have no advisor. Your advisor was not equipped for the modern era.
He wasn't equipped for the modern era. He wasn't equipped for molecular biology.
That's true.
I finally settle on a strategy that I can live with. And I send back a note. I send back the review. And my note says, I don't know why, but this entire list of critiques is not high quality. If you would like to point me to any of the critiques in this list that you would like me to address, I am more than happy to do it. But I don't think it makes sense to address the entire list. And as I recall it, I hit send on the email, and within minutes, maybe it was an hour, I got back a response. Your paper has been accepted for publication. Which blew me away because
it makes no sense according to regular protocols.
Right. It makes no sense because clearly they're supposed to send it out for review. The reviewer's supposed to say whether it's supposed to get published. The reviewer said it shouldn't be published. I said I refuse to address these critiques unless you ask me to. The editors have overridden the reviewer. They understood the reviews were cruddy. They needed me to say that in order to justify the move that they wanted to make. They knew the paper was good and the review was crap. So they effectively overrode normal peer review. Was my paper peer reviewed? Well, it was by the editors who were experts.
But let me jump in. Peer review is a cancer from outer space. It came from the biomedical community. It invaded science. The old system, because I have to say this because many people who are now professional scientists have an idea that peer review has always been in our literature, and it absolutely motherfucking has not.
Right.
Okay? It used to be that the editor of a journal took responsibility for the quality of the journal, which is why we had things like Nature crop up in the first place, because they had courageous, knowledgeable, forward-thinking editors. And so I just want to be very clear because there's a mind virus out there that says peer review is the sine qua non of scientific excellence, yada, 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 bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And if you don't believe me, go back and learn that this is a recent invasive problem in the sciences.
Recent invasive problem that has no justification for existing in light of the fact
that not only does it have no justification for existing, when Watson and Crick did the double helix, and this is the cleanest example we have, the paper was agreed should not be sent out for review because anyone who was competent would understand immediately what its implications were. There are reasons that great work cannot be peer reviewed. Furthermore, you have entire fields that are existing now with electronic archives that are not peer reviewed. Peer review is not peer review. It sounds like peer review. It is peer injunction. It is the ability for your peers to keep the world from learning about your work.
Keep the world from learning about your work.
Because peer review is what happens, real peer review is what happens after you've passed the bullshit thing called peer review.
Yes.